readers tend to somewhat self-insert themselves into a story's protagonist, wishing that the main character could serve as a fictional version of themselves to live out their dreams and fantasies. In Omniscient Reader's case, it's doing more than that. Kim Dokja, who is its main character, pretty much literally represents the readers themselves, but not as an overpowered hero or something like that, but simply as a reader. That's what his name literally means in Korean after all. Dokja is one of those few protagonists whose name is very meaningful to the story, since Omniscient Reader is about a reader whose favorite web novel became reality. Since we read the Omniscient Reader series, whether in novel or comic form, we are considered as readers too. Dokja is the same as us, or rather, Dokja is us. Like what was mentioned earlier, in the Korean language, the word Dokja means reader, but it can also mean only son or only child and individualist. All three definitions are applicable to this webtoon and web novel protagonist whose name is literally Dokja. But in this video, we are of course going to focus on this particular definition, Dokja being defined as a reader. Besides, his being a reader plays a huge role on the webtoon story. The webtoon's title, Omniscient Reader, is referring to him after all. The translation of the webtoon's original title is Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint or ORV, which is a skill that he obtained for being the sole reader of all the episodes of the 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse web novel, or TWSA for short. But then again, that skill is still referring to him, or rather, his point of view as a reader, to be more specific. But what exactly is a reader? Well, a reader is generally defined as someone who reads. With that, technically, anyone who is literate can be considered a reader. But not everyone who can read considers themselves as part of the community of readers, right? So, what does it take to be a reader like Dokja? Well, to put it simply, among the various definitions of the word reader, we'll focus on this one. A reader being someone who enjoys reading. That definition fits our Dokja the most, since it's his hobby after all. But is reading really just a hobby for him? Although Dokja mentioned it himself, I think on his case, reading web novels being just a hobby feels like an understatement. After all, reading a new chapter of TWSA has become his motivation to survive every day. In other words, this hobby of his has become his reason to live. Some people who went through hardships similar to what he had gone through tend to kill themselves. But because of his strong desire to read the next chapter of his favorite novel, he holds on. It means so much to him that he tries his best to not miss a day of reading it. He doesn't care even if he's the only one remaining who is still reading it. Dokja may have been lonely and single his whole life, but because of TWSA, he didn't exactly feel alone. So like what he told you Junghyuk in this scene, Junghyuk had not been alone. It was the same with Dokja while he is in our world. Notice that in this scene, Dokja said that he is with Junghyuk in his 3,000 episode journey. So to Dokja, he wasn't simply watching Junghyuk from afar, but he was right by the main character's side. That means, for Dokja, Junghyuk and the rest of the characters from TWSA are companions that are there with him, even if they were not physically together with him. With that, no wonder Dokja holds them so dear and treats them with care. Dokja's special relationship with the TWSA characters helps him in understanding them. His ability in ORV to read the thoughts of characters when his understanding has increased makes a lot of sense, since it's quite similar for a reader to be able to anticipate what a character will do if they understand the character very well. ORV just reimagined that fact in a really creative way. On Junghyok's case, I assume TWSA's POV allows the reader to read his thoughts. This explains why Dokja's ability has a special feature when it comes to the protagonist, wherein he can hear Junghyok's specific thoughts during that moment. It's interesting that the ability is somehow turned off when Dokja is exhausted. It's applicable to an actual reader after all. How could you continue reading the main character's thoughts when you're too tired to even keep your eyes open? Well, because of Dokja's deep understanding of the TWSA characters, it's clear that he has become very attached to them. He even thinks about Junghyuk when he is in trouble. Although he is realistic enough to not expect TWSA characters to rescue him physically, it was his way of seeking salvation from them. Even though they were not able to directly help him, and he still ended up being traumatized, it's still an achievement that he managed to survive despite all that bullying. With that, it shows that TWSA has given him the strength and the courage to live on. He is so in love with TWSA that he felt like he belonged there more compared to the real world. He even feels more confident being in that world, as he thinks he has higher chances of becoming a protagonist himself if he is in a world under the fantasy genre compared to a non-fiction genre. That's how attached he has become to TWSA. When he is reading TWSA, he becomes so immersed into it that you almost can't disturb him. It's like he's in another world while reading it. He's not just in it, but actually living it. The experiences that he reads feel like he's going through them himself. Since he feels that connected to TWSA, it's not a surprise that he remembers a lot of important events in it by heart. There was even someone to whom he actually narrated the events in the novel in detail. It is natural for a reader to want to share the books he likes to others, especially to those who read similar things that they do. Of course, Dokja had tried to recommend his TWSA to other readers, but sadly, he got accused for trying to gain attention. It's cool that TWSA's author took it positively, but Dokja can't help but feel bad about his favorite web novel not being given a chance. He doesn't disagree about the novel being difficult to appreciate, but he wished that if only they put up with it, they'll be able to see a treasure like he did. It made him upset when he read another web novel that's like a rip-off of TWSA. His attitude towards Han Sooyoung, whom he thinks is a plagiarizer, shows how much he despises those who practice plagiarism. It's an insult to the author of his favorite web novel. Because of his genuine respect to TWSA's author, he cannot approve of piracy either. Such activities also annoy him since it's not going to support the author legally. He wants to financially support the author too, but since he barely makes enough money for his daily expenses, he shows his support in little ways instead. An example of that, which he does diligently, is through showing his appreciation by posting a comment in every single chapter he has read. As we already know, he also tried to spread the love for TWSA, but if other people still don't want to read it, then there's nothing he can do. It's not his loss anyway, especially now that the events in TWSA are happening in reality. Dokja feels really proud for being the only one who had read until the end, to the point that he brags about it on every opportunity he gets. Although TWSA is his ultimate favorite, it doesn't mean that it's the only thing which Dokja reads. When Sangah and Kim Dokja interacted at the subway, he was reading The World After the Apocalypse, which is a fantasy web novel, also written by the creators of ORV. In the ORV web novel, Dokja actually used Lord of the Rings to give Sangah an idea of what the novel he was reading is like. Then around the fourth scenario, it was mentioned that he has read SSS Grade Infinite Regressor, which was a rip-off of his favorite novel. With that, it shows that he also reads many other web novels, especially those under the fantasy genre. What he reads doesn't seem to be limited to novels. He did promote the Webtoon, right? And in the ORV ebook, he had mentioned about liking Japanese manga. He also seems familiar with Sangah's favorite authors, which are quite famous in our world. Since Dokja reads a lot, even if he's only reading fiction, fantasy novels tend to make references to topics like history, religion, pop culture, and so on. Because of that, he gets to learn a lot of various things from reading. For instance, even though Korean history is already something taught in school, but thanks to the web novels he has read, Dokja knew more about certain historical figures than most would. Of course, his knowledge in history won't ever beat someone who really mastered history like Sangah, but his knowledge in history is still quite remarkable. For people who have read plenty of novels like Dokja, they naturally start to notice the similarities between the books they have read. Some of these similarities are cliché or tropes that can be quite exhausting to see if you have seen too much of them. It becomes infuriating if these things aren't even executed well. Dokja also feels that same disappointment, and he also can't help but express criticism. He had a lot of exchanges on that with Sooyoung, knowing that she's a writer. Talking with her must have felt like he finally had an opportunity to rant about the things he doesn't like in a story to an actual author and get some explanation from her. They pretty much debate on every opportunity. That's what a frustration of a reader who is not very pleased with what he has read is like. Although he was quite satisfied when he read the last chapter of TWSA, it didn't mean that he liked how it ended. There is an ending that he wanted. The crazy things that he has been doing in ORV so far are for the sake of making that ending he wished for to happen. The things which he does in ORV are not only for accomplishing the ending he wanted, but he also does some things for Junghyok's sake. That's how much he cares about his favorite character. Although he won't ever admit that he's a Junghyok fanboy. But Junghyok being his favorite doesn't mean that that character always makes him joyful. The protagonist makes Dokja feel various emotions. Dokja liked him, hated him, resented him, and cheered for him. But when Junghyuk does something cool, No matter how annoyed he is with the guy, Dokja can't deny being impressed. But of course, he won't say such compliments out loud. Speaking of cool stuff, an awesome moment in TWSA is among his favorite scenes. It's when Lee Hyun-sung used his mountain smash for the first time. This shows that Dokja isn't that biased towards his favorite character. Speaking of bias, he somewhat had something like that. I mean, you see, I've heard that Dokja used to have a crush on a TWSA character when he was a high schooler. Can you guess who that character is? Anyway, since you are watching this video, then you must be someone who enjoys reading too. So, you're also a Dokja. What we do as a reader is just the same as what Dokja has been doing in Omniscient Reader. Our abilities as a reader give us the power of flipping or scrolling to the next page, and we just bookmark the moments we want to review at a later time. Our point of view as a reader gives us more knowledge and greater advantage, at least compared to the actors directly involved in the story. When we understand the characters very well, we gain insight on what they might do in the future or why they are doing certain things. We have formed a special connection to the characters in the stories we've read. It's quite surreal. Although the fourth wall protects us from actual physical harm and intense psychological attacks from the story's universe, reading has still given us opportunities to explore new worlds, live different lives, and feel various emotions. If ever we didn't like how the original story ended, we can just rewrite it ourselves in some way. Stories inspire us to think deeper, and whatever we learn from reading can not only change our lives, but even change the world. We are readers, but we are not just similar to Dokja. We are actually him, because we are Dokja. So, as a Dokja, please support the ORV creators by reading from official platforms. Post comments, put a heart on your favorite chapters, and spread the love. If you can afford it or if you have free coins, then it will be fantastic if you use it on ORV. And if possible, try to purchase official merchandise. They are worth it, of course. By the way, what other things that you find yourself in common with Dokja? What other aspects of a reader have you noticed about Dokja? Let me know in the comments, as they might be considered on the next video. Of course, there's more about being a reader in ORV than what was covered in this video. Therefore, if you want more ORV content, likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions would be highly appreciated. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!